Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the Brain Dump. My name is Preston Leahy. Now, I'm just a regular 33-year-old guy trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life. Except in February 2021, I was stretching at a car wash, and 45 minutes later, I was paralyzed from the chest down. It sounds like a bunch of bullshit, but I've become all brain and no body. After going through the conveyor belt of the medical system and getting spit out the other side, I learned there are others in my shoes or worse who need encouragement. Family members who don't know how to support us, and people throughout the community who don't know how to engage us. As the show title suggests, in each episode, I will cover experiences related to my journey, give insights to family members of someone in a similar situation, and laugh about how random people engage with me. All I want is to empower my community and change how people perceive those of us with disabilities. In this week's episode, we're going to cover why the podcast is back, what happened, and then surviving by humor. Thanks for tuning in. Let's jump in. So, first, why is the podcast back? Um, for those that don't know, I tried to do this thing, man, right at the beginning, and I'll say probably a year in. And it came at the recommendation of a therapist. I was really against therapy the whole time I was going through it, but doctors, everyone were just like, hey, man, someone in your situation typically has, the need to talk to somebody. They have a lot of regrets, they have a lot of just life situations they're trying to work through. And I was really just like, dude, I got it. Like, you don't know who I am. Like, I'm cool. Like, I'm mentally the guy I can lock in a box and get through this. Like, I'm a athlete's mindset, right? So I pushed it off for a whole year. Well, then I finally like let this guy talk to me, and quite frankly, he reminded me of my brother, just personality wise. He's a gamer, real intellectual, fun-loving guy, and so I was like, all right, I can talk to him, and so I was like, all right, let me give it to you and vent to a stranger, and so I kind of like spilled some of my thoughts about how I felt, what happened, how I processed it all, like what was going on with me, and the dude was just floored because this was still during COVID, right? And so face to face wasn't a thing yet. We were still talking over Zoom, and so initially, kind of like this, he saw me and I looked normal until I'm like, no, man, like I can barely lift my arms, my hands don't open, like chest down, I don't move, like I'm just quad. There's a lot medically that isn't there. I'm just trying to stabilize right now, and he just knocked him off his socks. And he was like, well, clearly you're still locking a lot in. Like, you're telling me what you think I want to hear, and you're telling me what's going to be like enough for me to just be like, oh, okay, he talked, versus like giving to me what you need to. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not going to argue that. And he goes, what might be good for you is to start like a video journal. And he's like, just record it. Like, watch yourself in the camera, talk through what you're going through, your feelings, and, you know, send it to nowhere. And, uh, and he was like, and then one day when you're ready, you should post it. And I'm like, nah, man, in the beginning, like, I didn't see value in that, right? Like, the outside world has their perception of my experience and like how I've gotten here and what can come of it and who can benefit from it and people finding encouragement. But like in the beginning, man, I was just that I didn't see it yet. I still am starting to understand, but like I'm me. I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to get by. I'm just trying to make it, dude. Like I have died already. I have come back. I keep getting septic. Like these doctors aren't listening to me. They're not taking care of me. Quite frankly, with what happened to me, and I'll get into that here in just a little bit. Like they don't know what to do and how to take care of it. And so, it was real challenging for me personally. And so when I finally actually came around to doing it, I had just moved back to Dallas, and I'd literally been there weeks. I came week before Christmas, and I had just gotten a bunch of friends to help move me into a new apartment where I am now, and I started having like these sensations, and really what took place was I had a lot of student nurses. So with my situation, I need a lot of care, and I need people to come in the morning and do my program, and I need people to come at night and like help get me out of my chair and in bed and like make sure everything's right. And then I've also got, we'll get into it more, but I've got like a machine inside of me, and I've got a catheter because it just all my organs are paralyzed, and so um I had a it's expensive, right? Like it's expensive. If I really like got into like and we'll do this in other episodes and I'll be happy to dive in, but just for the sake of understanding, like right now for my care, agencies want $28 an hour and insurance doesn't cover it and they require a 4-hour minimum. And so you do the fast math, but two 4-hour sessions 31 days a month, 365 days a year, like it adds up quick. And we're just talking about somebody showing up. Like we haven't talked about the medical supplies. We haven't talked about all the different things that are required in, the boots, the gloves, the bandages, everything. And so money was a really, really big issue for me personally because when I had gotten injured, fortunately in sales, I had a decent commission that was sitting in my bank account. And so I had some there. But then even that, it was like, if I'm not working and like nothing's coming in, it's what are we going to do? Is really what it came to. And, uh, and so we're back in Dallas. I'm using student nurses, is moral of the story. I got student nurses that were young, they were immature, but they were willing to work. I was the first patient, and I had a student, and I told her to use hydrogen peroxide. And she was cleaning my catheter, but she like filled it up like it was a well. And that ended up causing a UTI. And with my situation, UTIs, they go right inside, and it's not just like, oh, people are like, oh, I've had a UTI. And it's like, no, not like this one. Like, they basically, since because it's an open orifice, the hole in my stomach, it runs inside, it causes this infection that turns into sepsis, and it's pretty significant. Well, I was having one of those issues and I was like, didn't know that's what it was yet. It was just like, man, something's wrong. Like, I don't know what's going on. So I phoned the doc and I'm like, hey, like, this is what I'm experiencing. This is what's happening. I'm, having these tremors and all this stuff. I can't control them anymore. The pain's getting real bad. And he was like, look, man, I'm going to be honest with you. This doesn't sound good. You're in Dallas. You can't get to us quick. Like, you got to go put yourself in. And I'm like, no, man, I really don't want to do that. And he was like, "Yeah, you got to, man. You've got to. Like, I'm scared for you." So I'm like, "Here we go again, right?" Um, and so when I came to Dallas, before that happened, I had spent a trip coming over the Thanksgiving holiday, like visiting all these hospitals. I haven't been able to get more than arm's length away from the Houston hospital system. And quite frankly, I was just burnt out of it. My mom had asked me to come home and consider it. And so we came and visited all these hospitals in Dallas to like make sure that they could handle somebody with my medical condition and in my situation. I'll get into what that is here in a little bit. And so we found this like brain and spine hospital. They were a level 5. They said they were very familiar with this type of stuff. They knew how to handle it. They had a special ward and unit for it. And I mean, we interviewed these doctors, and they like literally were like, "Oh yeah, no, we know exactly what to do. This is something that we see. We do these type of surgeries, like no problem at all whatsoever." Well, when it came time, ambulance comes, EMTs are there, and I'm like, okay, cool. This is where we're going. This is what I need to do. It's just up the road. It's close by. So we get there and go to the ER, and they're like, oh, it's just this. Send them over here. I'm like, whoa, no, no, no. Like we came and talked, and they said I go to this department in this section, and this is what happens. And they're like, no, no, you'll be fine. It's just this thing. Go to general. And I'm like, dude. I'm a quadriplegic. Like, this is a whole different thing. Have you heard of autonomic dysreflexia? Like, that's a whole different thing. And again, we'll dive into that later. There's going to be plenty of episodes, but just to explain why the brain dump was is back. Um, and so, needless to say, I was in this hospital, and this doctor didn't know my situation, didn't understand it, and quite frankly, looked at my meds and my charts and were like, "I'm not comfortable giving these meds and these doses and these combinations." I'm like, this is what I got from my spinal doctor in Houston. Please contact them if you need to. Like, I just came from there a week or so ago, and now I'm having this issue and I'm here, and this is what I regularly take. I walked in with this. Like, what do you mean? And so they refused and they wouldn't do it. And so my situation got worse. I began to decline. And needless to say, I went septic under this doctor again. And so at that time, I was like, look, you got to get me out of here. There is a spinal hospital in Dallas. I've called around myself, Baylor Spine Rehab. They're the number two, right behind where I just was at Tier. Transfer me there. They know what to do and they will accept me. And the doctor refused, refused to transfer. And she was holding me there. And I was literally like captive. It felt like I was a prisoner, and I could feel things getting worse, and I could feel like I was declining. And I'd been here before. I know what this is. I was dying, and so I took to the podcast. I was screaming at the cell phone. I was mad. I was just trying to spill it out, put it all out there. Like, this is the situation. This is what's going to happen. This is what's wrong with the medical system. This is why people like me die. And I was really angry. And I, there at the end, like, said like thanks to all the people that supported me. And quite frankly, when I transferred from one hospital to the other and I finally got that to happen, and that's a whole episode. Um, I kind of just stopped, right? I had to focus on moving forward and what that meant for me, what that looked like. Um, and how that was going to happen. And so I put the phone down. And then after that, it was all just, it was business. It was like what I need to do to move forward. Cause, you know, there's been so much love and so many people came and put together that GoFundMe money. And I can't thank you enough. Like, wow. Quite frankly, when I believe it was Emily Puskarich put that together, I didn't think anybody was going to put into it. I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. And when I saw what it turned into, it was incredible. Um, it came at a time when like insurance wasn't helping, like nothing was coming in. I was a bonehead at benefit enrollment just a couple months prior at ADP, and I saw short-term and long-term benefits, and I was like, I'm 30 years old. I'm ox strong. Like, I don't need that yet. I was like, that's more in my paycheck I can keep. And I opted out, and then boom, that was December, January, and then February, voila. Like, who would have thought? Um, so yeah, that was me being a big bonehead, making a bonehead mistake. And then I was down to my last shekels, right? And, I was blessed. Um, you know, there is a higher power, and he was looking out for me. I had a job. ADP pushed me out, and they weren't really, my current employer wasn't really supporting me, and they were trying to like push me into a corner. They had reduced my pay by over 50%, offered me an hourly job, and it just wasn't going well. And so I ended up getting myself another job and getting a good offer letter, and there was a start date on it, and it was like, this is what I need to make happen. Like, I don't care what it takes or what happens to me. Like, I am going to make this happen. And so um that's been the last year, and here we are. Man, it's been quite a roller coaster ride. I'm excited to share that experience with you guys, but um that's why the podcast is back. I realized the way I left it, it was just so heavy, negative, wrong, and that's not the right intention for what this is supposed to be. Um, now that I've had time to like step back, reflect, I'm a little over 2.5 years into my journey of being paralyzed. Um, I've seen a lot and I've observed not just within, the medical world, but like beyond that, right? Like the way the world handles me is prepared for me, the accommodations that are out there, like it's just not good enough. And I've I've got to do something about that, right? Like I still have the muscle of my brain. Like my body may not work anymore, but my personality wasn't impacted. My cognitive ability wasn't impacted. And I have a responsibility to do something about this. Like people people need to understand one, what it's like, but two, that it's okay. And three, it just they people that are getting injured like myself need encouragement. They need somebody to stand up and say like you can do it. Look what I've done. Follow my path. And if that's what I get to be, that's what this is going to be. I'm here to share my story and I hope it encourages you. I hope if you're not in a disability position, but it encourages you. I hope if you are a friend, family of someone in a similar situation, I can provide insight that helps you understand what they're going through and then how to support somebody like this. Um, and then really, I don't want it to be all heavy negative and inspirational is great, but man, I want to put a little splash of humor in this. Like in order to make this thing right, we've got to make sure the flavors are all in there. And man, I for a half second thought that I need to do some stand-up comedy about some of the things that I've experienced, not just like, you know, in the world with other people, but while I'm traveling, while I'm in the hospital, like all the things that are happening to me, it is unreal the amount of content that I've got just about that. So I'd love to share some stories and lighthearted things that just about my situation, which I think will be great. It'll be great to one, just review, reflect, and talk through all that. But really, it's going to be fun to like bring people on and have conversations and talk about those things and those experiences, and then get everyone else's feedback and input. So that's what you can expect from this show. Um, it's like ripping off the band-aid. Episode one's never going to be great. You guys are going to be able to tune in. You're going to understand what's happening and what's going on with me. But ultimately, that's what I want you to look forward to. Is I'm going to share a lot. I'm going to talk about, all the nuances of what took place. I'm going to review some of that. I'm going to be helpful, but I'm also going to have conversations with people, and we're going to talk through, things that need to be said. And at first, this will be, all about what happened and what took place. But then as time goes on, I mean, we're just gonna have to talk about everything. Like it's gonna turn into the brain dump. So lots to look forward to from that perspective. Surviving by humor is how I've moved through this. So I'll be looking forward to sharing that with you guys. Um, let's see, what else? What can I give you guys that gives you a little more context on what we're going to be doing here? Um, I just want to say thanks for tuning in, right? There's a lot of you that really followed my story. And when I would just cross you in public, random places, people would say, like, hey, man, I was watching your brain dump. And I'm like, what? You really watched that? Like, oh, man, I got to do something about that. It's been a year just hearing little things like that where I'm like, wow, people really tuned in. Like, I just thought I was mad and just screaming out to nowhere. And maybe a few people like it. Um, I don't know if anybody liked it. I know that they heard it, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart because you listened. I know some of those were long and just dark, and you tuned in. So thank you. What I will ask is I'm gonna post these videos. They're going to go on all social channels. So please like, subscribe, share. Share with somebody you think that's going to benefit from this information, or just share if you think it's fun, it's funny, or the world can appreciate this information. So thank you for that as well. You can find us on all social media channels. So the handle is going to be the Brain Dump 33, whether that's Twitter, Instagram, uh, TikTok. I'm going to have to build the social presence, but I have every intention of being out there. I've got all the channels established. YouTube channel, the Brain Dump's going to be live. Patreon is out there. If those of you that want to join my exclusive community of Brainiacs, I'm going to share the Patreon link below here in the description. So you'll be able to find all of the social channels that way. Um, Guys, it's going to be fun. This is going to be a good little journey. It's been a long time coming. We've talked about it. People have recommended it. Everyone wanted to, you know, guide me in this direction, and I was really hesitant at first. But I'm ready. We're gonna jump in, and we're gonna have a good time doing it. Oh, last plug. I'm writing a book. Yeah, that was the first recommendation that came from my very best friend, and I didn't know how to do that at first. It was just so raw, and it was right there, and I couldn't step back from it and put it on paper yet. But I've started, and I think I think you're going to enjoy what's come out of it. I'm really looking forward to your feedback. My brother made a great recommendation. Initially, he was like, what are you going to do about this book? And I was like, well, I'm going to write it. And so I've got chapter one done, and I was starting on chapter two. And he was like, how are you going to publish? It's like, I haven't gotten that far yet. And he goes, okay, that's fair. Have you thought about self-publishing, going to a publisher? And I was like, no, I really haven't at all. And I was like, but you read a lot, in fact. Like, what would you recommend? And so my brother is really big into nonfiction. And excuse me, I'm sorry, Grayson. I take that back. He's big into fiction. I'm a nonfiction guy, and so he recommended like, hey, there's a couple authors that I follow. New artists and new authors typically succeed in their first publications going digital. He's like, it's not as expensive. You can get it published quicker, and you can actually uh, post chapters, and you can do it through Patreon. He's like, do chapters as you release them, and then people can follow and keep up with it. And I'm like, what is Patreon? Like, I have no idea, guys. Like, quite frankly, I've been so unplugged and just in the rabbit hole. Um, and so I found out what Patreon is, and that's the full intention. So keep a lookout for the book. It's going to be called Disability, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. So please, I'd love for you to participate, get that, and then give me your feedback. There's chances for you guys post comments here on the YouTube channel as well as the Patreon channel, and you guys will be able to leave comments on the chapters that I published for the book. So really looking forward to your feedback, and I'll kind of guide the direction I take with that. But moral of the story: if you join the Brainiac community, you're going to be getting free access to just one, my information, but two, if you join the Brainiac uh, membership community, you're going to get exclusive content. You're going to get early releases. You're going to get extended content beyond what's happening in the podcast, extended interviews, and live sessions with me. So I'm going to sit and talk to you guys, let you post in the chat, answer questions, and there will be some instances where I'll be willing to jump on the phone and have a big call with you guys in a live session. So things to think about. I hope you join it. Look forward to it, and I appreciate all you guys. Anyway, much love. Signing off. Have a great night, and we'll talk with you soon. Take care. Thank you for joining this episode of The Brain Dump.